What's going on, YouTube? Got my AUG A3 M1 here, and I want to actually show off a pretty cool scope that I ended up buying for it. The Steyr STG 77. This is the 1.5 times optic with the donut of death. And I'm going to talk about why I bought it, my philosophy, and kind of do a unboxing and a review of the scope. So here's my AUG. I bought my AUG because I wanted a retro, kind of a classic setup. And when it came, it had a side rail that was about just right here, installed. I have it removed in this case. And it came with the long cantilever, that top 1913 rail. It's very modular, different optics, magnifier scopes. You can kind of put whatever you want. But just going back from my philosophy, I just wanted an old classic setup, which led me to buying this. When I was doing research on this, there was no information online. There were no YouTube videos, obviously, and so that's why I wanted to make this video. The scope is pretty expensive. And as you can see, it's a classic traditional scope. I'll do a better overview once I get it out of the bag. And this is exactly how it comes, but pretty expensive. And I kind of did the plunge because I couldn't find much information online about this. I was considering briefly buying the 40th edition of the AUG, where it had the 20-inch barrel, it had the retro, STG scope on there, but it was considerably expensive, and I already had an AUG. I would have had to do a lot of work, sell this, buy that, whatever. And I decided for my setup, what I wanted to do was just buy the optic and convert my AUG from tactical to kind of a classic retro setup. I guess the model would just go back to talking about the STG 77. So first I'll show you how to install this, and before we do that, let me just unbox it for you. So this is how it comes. I bought this from Kinetic Firearms. Bought it in March, and as you can see, it has the acquisition date of 12/27/24. Now I don't know if this is an Atlantic Firearms thing or if this is a date code from when it was manufactured. But they seem to be new production. You can find these online from many different retailers. Comes in a bag. It is not sealed. And this is everything it comes with. There's no screws. There's no roll pins. You can see how there's a provision for having a roll pin set up right here. But as you'll see once we install it, it's not required. What we have is the elevation and windage. So here is the elevation right here. See up and down, and then the windage is on the side as usual. Has a third knob. It's unmarked, and it also appears to be permanently attached. This obviously is not a illuminated scope. Just a black crosshair, which you can see. Let me see if I can focus on there. But you can kind of get the idea of what the reticle looked like. There you go. So it's a very wide aperture with a very fine dot in the center of that donut. And that's called the donut of death. It does have backup iron sights on the very top. There's your sight picture. And just a very simple install. These go in via the 3 screws right here. Not much to it. It's a very narrow scope, probably like 15 millimeters. But we'll get it installed. I'll show you how. So, I'll take the bag out. I will take the barrel out. And if you have the AUG, it's very easy. Just slightly pull back on the charging handle while also turning on this knob. Now bear with me, I'm doing this in front of a camera, kind of an awkward angle. Then the disassembly button right here. So now you have your upper receiver right here. The tricky part that took me a little bit of time was taking these 3 screws off. So these are the ones that are factory mounted. And these are going to be what you use to install your actual scope. Because as you saw, It just was a scope. It didn't come with any screws, no roll pins. That's exactly how it came. You remove these, and then there's also a third one down this hole. Let me see if I can't. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see it. Now, I don't have my torque spits with me, but as you can see, it's a torque, and the size is a T30. And keep in mind, these are Loctited. These have the same red and blue Loctite mix as the bill. Because if you ever took these off before, you know it's a big pain in the ass. Steyr uses a very generous amount of Loctite, and so you're gonna have to use heat to take it off. In my case, I use a very cheap soldering tool. These are kind of meant for electronics, but you can also use these to stipple polymer. And in this case, what I did is once it was plugged in, I just used my soldering tool to heat up the head of the screw. And so the heat would transfer down into where all the Loctite is, and then it would burn off and allow me to remove the screw. That's what I did. I found that if you were to use a heat gun, considering how, your screws right here, and you're trying to drive the heat, it's possible to use a heat gun, just a really crude tool. I found that one to work exactly for me. It's also pretty cheap. And you also got to worry about taking off your charging handle and just also, getting these excessively hot while not necessarily wanting that to be. So that's what I did. And let me get these removed. I don't have my tool with me. I'll cut the video and we'll show you how it installs. Alright, so we're back. Sorry for the jump cut, but it would have been pretty hard for me to unscrew it on camera. So like I said, just took a T30 bit. And then remove the torque screws. And once you do it once, not so much to it. So it just removes like that, cant up, and then out. This is where it attaches. You can see the provision where a roll pin is meant to be installed, but obviously it's going to be screwed into the bottom in that supply the roll pin. And this was probably a modular design that OG or Steyr meant to implement as a possibility, but it looks like they do not do that, because even on this one, the actual rail, you notice that when it's installed, there's no provision for the roll pin. Just not something you have to worry about. I did have to spend a few hours of research on how to actually do this whole procedure between disassembling the rail, the actual roll pin from TN Steyr. He does a lot of OG content. And so I'm making this video to kind of help the future buyers that do want to buy the scope know what they're getting and how to actually install it, because it took me a lot of debating with the high costs and unknown facts where how if it even would accept. Because keep in mind, they make these for 2 different models. My OG that I have is the OG A3 M1. They also make a separate version of the scope, which is meant for the OG M2, the A3 M2. Typically that has a different rail. This rail, it's a different design, so they made a different scope. Just keep in mind that when you buy it, you make sure you buy the right one. Like I said, I also did take out this rail section right here, because I want a classic gun. I don't want this to be rails everywhere. I bought an OG and spent the money because it's different. I don't really need it to be, I don't know, I just want it to be retro, if that makes sense. So, real simple install, same thing as before. There it is. Goes down. See how it's very flush, actually. There it is. So now it's flush back here. Flush, mounted up. Very clean design. Let me get these screws back in. Same process before. It's a super simple install. Really not much to it, and then it looks awesome when fully assembled. Just exactly how I want it. So, stand by. I'll get it installed. let's talk about it. Alrighty, so here's my final setup. Super simple install. Only took me about 30 seconds off camera just to install the 3 screws. Take a look at that, huh? It's got that short 16-inch bill. I do have a Griffin Armament 3-prong flash hider. The tulip flash hider was a little tricky to install because it has that lock nut and also was installed with the Loctite. So it's kind of a pain to take off, but got everything set up that I want. Got the old classic scope. And this is a honey, huh? Foldable grip. It's the AUG A3, so it does have a bolt catch and bolt release. And this happens to be a QD pin as well, just so I can run a QD sling. I got my front and rear socket for my sling. And then when I don't want it, I have a very clean setup. When I do, I can install my sling in just a few seconds. So besides the scope and the flash hider, everything else is factory. I do have the AUG suppressed gas piston here, just because I do run the suppressed. Ain't that honey, look at that. It's a classic setup, capability being suppressed, got that gas piston, so it's perfect. And that's it, just a very clean setup. The scope is really expensive, and I just wanted to share that it is very easy to install. Make sure you buy the right model, just showing off some features. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys.